Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts. We're back on the Scout 800 Fender. We last left it with a continuous TIG weld bead, nice small bead. We're going to clean this up and metal finish this right now. So the first thing I like to do is clean up all the fire scale rather than just grinding it. Gives you a better look at what you did. That fire scale can hide a bunch of stuff. I still need a little bit of welding on the flange here. I'll do that later. But let's clean this right up right now. All right, so that's all cleaned up now, and we're going to grind it. I use this 50 grit Nortons. This is a used one. It's all bit on the edges. It's still pretty good in the center. So I cut it like this, about 1/4 inch off. Put some facets on it. Those little points grind like crazy. It doesn't matter if you don't get it just right. And it's good to have light behind you. I got some nice light behind me here. So you grind and then feel with your finger. Try not to dig in at all. There's not much weld bead on the back here because we use copper, and that control that. Looks pretty good. Now we'll do this side here. Now, again, if you have a situation, this is the ideal is a nice little roll here, and the weld and the two pieces come together just like that. It's easy to grind. It sometimes will pop up like this. That makes it easy to grind on the top side, hard to grind on the bottom side. Or it might sink in on you like this. It makes it very difficult to grind in here. So if that's the situation, you always want to straighten that out first. And I think I showed in the last video how I use this lead-filled shot bag, and you can move the metal around so that if you have a situation like this, you get it to where you want it to be, so you get an ideal grinding situation. So remember, we want to flow along with the weld. We're not going to go across the weld. Now, sometimes you have to go across the weld because it's just the only way you can get it, but probably 95% of the time you can go, I call it skating along the weld, and you're running right with it, right at the 12 o'clock position. And the verification is that the grind striations will be going this way, not across like that. I'm going to go on this 6 o'clock position and hit the other side of the weld. All right, most of that is down now. That's a preliminary grind. We're going to have a fine grind later. We're going to crush some of that in. There's been a little shrinkage in here. Anytime you put heat on steel or aluminum, you're going to get a little shrinkage. So what we're going to do now is we'll hit this with magic marker, and then we're going to hit it with the shrinking disc, and that will reveal all our highs and lows really nicely. So this was a neat little gadget that one of my subscribers to my Pro Shaper channel commented in the comment sections about try one of these out. It's covers all, and it's black ink, and instead of going through a lot of magic markers, and plus this is enormous, you can add to it and refill it. I bought like a pint of ink to go with it. All right, that's all dried. We put a little beater bag on there to hold it from vibrating and stuff, and now we're just going to run the disc on it. The purpose of that was just to find my surface conditions. I got a few little tiny lows. I beat that up before we welded it, and there's a couple high spots. Effectively, because the marker is so heavy on there, it'll act as a lubricant, and it didn't really heat it up. My intent was not to heat it up, just to reveal what the surface looks like. And there's a residual dent up here. That's probably the first thing I'm going to chase after, is get that little dent up here. And then we'll just planish this and planish that weld a little bit. And then we'll keep addressing it with, I've got a little nugget over here I missed in the grinding operation. So I'll chase that first. So this is my go-to dolly. I'll use this almost all the time. It's got a great assortment of different shapes on it, and we want to bring that up. So what we're going to do is try to get in that corner a little bit there. Maybe that might do it right there. So I put that up against it. This is the fulcrum. My slapper is the lever. If you haven't watched the video on how to make a slapper, I got a really nice slapper video. And this is a nice low crown here. We'll just generally planish here. And these little spots that the magic marker is still shiny, that's where the shrinking disc didn't hit those, so they were a little low. So you can put the dolly in there and you'll see the little footprints and bring those lows up. Now, in the process of knocking this out, we might go a little too strong and bring the surface up higher than when it wants to be, but that's not a fear at all, because the shrinking disc will level it right back for you. So we're looking pretty good now. It's a little bit better. Give it one more planish. Now, you can bring this to a planishing hammer and throw it through the planishing hammer. Sometimes it gets pretty awkward with the big size of the Fender. You can have a mobile planishing hammer, but this skill set of using a dolly and a slapper is a necessary skill set that you have to learn if you want to do high quality work. A lot of people would just Bondo this, but that, in my opinion, is not high quality work at all. We want to make this just as good as the factory. So let's see what we can come up with. Now, some people might get turned off by the fact that, wow, that's a lot of work. Well, it takes a lot of work to do this, but it also takes a lot of work to Bondo that all up and smooth it and everything else. And you have the potential problem of the Bondo blowing up somehow, air bubbles exploding later on when you've got about a $10,000 paint job on it or something. So it's a good idea to try to get in the habit of doing the best possible metal work that you can. And it's a skill set that always increases, so that you learn from every single panel you do. You get better and better at it. And a lot of people think, well, you're going to get faster at it. Sometimes you just get more picky, and oftentimes it can be slower because you see stuff that you wouldn't have seen before when you first started out. So you can use every little facet of this dolly. Now, the shrinking disc is all loaded up with marker, and that won't create much heat, so you want to dress the shrinking disc. So I get a piece of 80 sandpaper, I got one right here, and you run it face up like this. And this one is really wobbling like crazy. Probably got dropped a couple times, and it's lost its ability to run true, so I probably have to replace this one. We've been making these shrinking discs. We sell them on our website, www.proshopshaper.com. All right, now we have a little foam pad with a hook it and loop connection here. And we're going to clean this weld a little bit better now. Still proud, the weld is still proud in a few little spots. I'm going to grind it out a little more here. Now this is a 19 gauge Fender, which is 19 gauge can be anywhere from 38 thousandths to 42 thousandths. I think it mic'd up about 40 thou, and this was a 19 gauge patch we made. So we got the same thickness metal, which is always a good thing to do. All right, got that down a little bit better. This is a 120 grit, just knocking off the magic marker. Now what I'll do is, instead of using the magic marker as my high and low, I've used that to get the preliminary. It's actually pretty good here. I'm going to use this little detail sander. It's a Harbor Freight detail sander, and put a little 80 grit, and this does an orbital sand, and it leaves the little orbital scratch marks in. So now we have a orbital scratch mark common on the whole panel, and I've got light behind me. If you have light behind you, you can really see the surface good. So now I'm going to get a little sanding block, and I'll sand this and that will reveal really good all the low spots. All right, so put some 150 sandpaper, it's stick-it paper, on this little Baltic birch 6-inch diameter circle, and it's really flat, and we're going to use this as a little sanding board. So we're going to sand across, and this is going to find all the highs, just like the magic marker does, but I like the way this works. All right, so all the lows get shined, the highs rather get shined up, and all the lows are around these highs here. So what we're going to do is put the dolly in behind and bring up some of those lows. Now this is really good because one of the big peels of the bullseye pick method is that it lines up really good, because it's difficult to hold your dolly and then hit it in the right spot. But when you do it this way here, with those little orbital striations there, every time you hit, it'll leave this little mark, and if you got the light just right, you can see exactly where it is. So you can walk it around, and I've got a spot right here that's just probably only 4 or 5 thousandths of an inch deep relative to the high spot, and we're going to bring that up, and you'll see that's where now that was formerly low, but now it's scratching, which means it's high. And like I mentioned before, if we come up too high with these, the shrinking disc is going to level this all anyway, so it's like a foolproof system. And it's all about catching the light at the right angle. Let the light help you out. Now this little feature here, there's a nice little valley here, and it comes around and fades out to nothing right in here. And the panel, I believe, actually comes up a little bit here because this is a higher plane than over there. So we've got a little bit of less than perfect situation right here at the edge. So I'm going to put that there and see, maybe with my snap-on, favorite snap-on hammer, instead of the slapper, I'll pull that up a little bit. We don't want to go right on bare metal with the shrinking disc. We're going to run the shrinking disc on here. So I like to just put a couple spots like that with the marker. And that will add just enough lubricant without adding too much. And we've got to clean the disc again, so we're going to sand that. You see that steam? That's what we want. And what happened here is there'll be slight little high spots. These are micro highs. And as you run the disc on them, the disc finds those highs, and it kind of ignores the low spots because it can't get to them. Hits those high spots because of the friction of the disc. It'll heat them up, and when you heat the metal, even aluminum is like 300-400 degrees. That's all you need to be. Steel is about the same. And what happens is the metal will expand. So the high spots are already there. and they'll expand up a little bit, and you're pushing on them with the disc a little bit, and the surrounding metal isn't as hot, and it'll slip into itself once it cools down. So you get a little bit of contraction, and those high spots turn into not high spots, but equal to or level with the surrounding metal. Now we still have some little micro lows. Now all this would probably be filled with primer at this point. We don't need to use any Bondo, but we'll continue on here, see if we can bring up some of those lows a little bit more. We still got a little bug right here. I think I'm going to have to put a little daub of weld over here. I still need a little weld on this flange, and that's super important. You want your flange to be really strong. And this radius here that's going to be here, that has to match the rocker radius. So I've got a gauge for that, and we're going to check that after. If we have to adjust it, it can be adjusted with a shrinker. You can just hit it a little bit, and because we're only going to need a slight adjustment on that, and but it wants to match the rocker roll exactly the same radius. So we'll try to pick up these little micro spots. And if you get the light just right, you can pull them up. Now I went a little too strong there, because I can actually feel it that I've lifted the surface up a little bit, but no worries, because once I run the disc again, that'll level it right out. So I was a little aggressive there, so maybe back it off a little bit here. That was a nice little low spot. It was a little high there too. Again, no worries. So the slaps now are much less to get the action to happen. And you've got the shrinking disc to bail you out of any mistakes you might make. Right where the weld was, I don't like that. I can actually feel a little spot right there, and I can see a low too. I'm going to see if I can target that. Yeah, I went right in the valley. There's a little bit more here. I'm using this edge right here. It's got a nice radius to it. You might not be able to see it, but every time I strike, I can see the little footprint, which means that the dolly is pushing up, but I'm pushing down with the slapper. The slapper is much superior to the hammer because it has a much broader face to work with. So that's looking really good. Let's throw the disc on it again. Put a little marker on it. Now a lot of people use Dicom. I don't like the Dicom so much because the Dicom doesn't like the shrinking disc. It kind of gums up on the shrinking. There's our steam, and this is feeling really good now. You have I put a little Palmolive soap, dishwashing soap in here, and you can rub your hand on here very smoothly, and it's feeling really good. Now there's still micro stuff, it's really small, but let's see how good we can get this. I have a little crack up here. It was the original crack. I never addressed that, so I got to weld that flange, I got to weld that crack, and I'll weld this little radius here where the weld came around. It's got a couple little deficits there that need a little extra material. So let's sand it with the orbital sander again with the nice new 80. And we're not removing much material here at all. It's just purely just to scratch it to see the surface condition. A lot of people might say, oh, it's just a Scout, it's not worth this attention. Well, one went off on Bring a Trailer the other day. It's been all resto modded and everything. It was done, looks like it was done really nice, and it brought $120,000 on Bring a Trailer. So we still have a few little edge of the weld spots. I can probably get those with a little grinder. I just got to chase after a little bit. It's a little low right here. I'm going to chase after that. I'm going to use that little spot right there. So it's a process of elimination. One after another, you find your bad spots and you fix them. Now, it is a little high right here. I'm going to have to shrink it some more right there. So everything feels really good except for this spot right here. So I'm going to give that a little extra special attention. I need my marker. Where'd my marker go? Here it is. A couple little spots. Move this up. There. So I got a little hotter that time. You get a little more action on it when you get a little hotter. I could feel that that was a little high there. You can see now that the shrinking disc is hitting much more of the surface, and we've only got some really small areas that need to still come up a little bit, so we can chase after. This corner has been a problem. I got to get in there. Let's see. Maybe I'll try this heel of the dolly here to get up in there. No, that don't seem to be working. I might have to choose another dolly for that. I'll check out my other dollies for that one. Little spot there. And then right here, along where the weld was, similar to what it was over here. This has pretty much gone away now. Let me see if I get a dolly to do this corner here. I've got this one. This was a door stopper at my water jet cutter, and I asked him if I could have it, and I cleaned it up and made a dolly out of it. This is pretty nice. I can get right in where I want to, I think, and pick that corner up. Now, another method of doing this metal finishing is they call it pick and file. And pick and file I'm not a fan of, because a sharp hammer, which is with a pick, you use on the backside, then you file it. And what you end up with is a lot of different thicknesses of your surface. And filing is another method where you're really filing it and you're pounding it up, maybe not so much with a pick hammer, but you don't want to remove too much material. I've sanded a bunch, but it's very minor, the amount that I've taken off. So that's looking a little better. Let's hit it once again with the disc. That's feeling really nice and smooth now. Let's give it a light sand with 120 with a 6-inch rotary grinder here. I'll show you that. Here's another inexpensive Harbor Freight grinder. We make the little interface piece here that allows you to run the foam pad. We sell the foam pads on our website. That's looking really good, and it feels really good too. Like I said, I'm going to have to throw a little weld in this radius on the flange here. I got a weld over here. It still needs a little attention here. There's a little residue here. I think that might be cracked right there. I'll have to address that. And there's some pits from the previous rust up here. We didn't change that out, but overall I like the look of that. That's looking pretty sweet. We'll give it a quick orbital with a 120 now. You can see right here it's going to need a little attention. And I still have a little residue of the weld, edge of the weld right there. But overall, that's pretty nice. So I think that's all we're going to do tonight, because I'm going to have to come in here with the welder. I don't want to do that in tonight's video. And I got to weld up these 3 spots here. So we've got it pretty good. Let's sand this. It'll show some imperfections still. We'll chase it a little bit more. It's a little bit low right in here. From the scratch pattern, you can see that it's a few thousandths low right there. So we'll give that a little pump. But our weld has pretty much disappeared. We're a little low over in here. That's the edge of the weld. All right, there you have it. Just to finish it off, let's throw a little black paint on there so you can see it really good with the black paint. And maybe Mark can bring the camera down and see that. It's looking pretty good. A few little micro stuff still there. You can actually see it. But primer would fill any of that stuff. You could chase it a little bit more. Like I said, we still got those three spots to weld up. But overall, that looks pretty nice. Top coats on that will be very nice. No Bondo needed. So there you have it. You saw the procedure. We're going to be showing that several times again because we've got a bunch of them to do. Every time you might pick up something new. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop. Remember to please subscribe and give us some likes and hit the notification bell so you can find out when new videos are coming up. We're trying to do 2 every week now. And thanks for all the support. Tell all your friends. We're trying to build the channel. Thanks for watching. It's Ray Schelin.